1:30 in the afternoon. You heard some bells there in the background. We're live here at the Oklahoman's Video Studios. I'm Dave Morris. It's time for our weekly look at national politics and local politics, and we're joined via Skype by our man in Washington, Chris Castile. We're going to play a little game of where in the world is Chris Castile? Chris, how are you, sir?
Hey, Dave. I am on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol.
And look at that. We see the dome in the background right behind you.
Dome in the background, some work being done on it. I'm just on the west side of the Capitol. I'll kind of give you an idea of where I am. There's so the mall is that way toward the museums. This is the you can't really see it, but this side of the Capitol is where the inauguration takes place. We'll be having one of those in just a few months from now.
Just a few months. How's the weather today in D.C.?
It's tolerable, very tolerable, which is nice. This here is, and I'm going to go sit in here in a minute. This is a kind of out of the way place called the Summer House, and it was designed by the same guy, Frederick Law Olmsted, designed it. He was the very famous landscape architect. He was one of the people who did Central Park, a lot of parks in Boston and other parks in New York, and really all over the country, and this is his contribution to the Capitol grounds. It's kind of an out-of-the-way spot. Most tourists just sort of stumble upon it, and so I'm going to go in there and we'll talk politics.
Sounds good. I mentioned that for the handful of times I've been in Washington, D.C., but I've never actually done the tourist thing, so all this stuff is fascinating to me, and it's really a little bit ridiculous that I have not done the touristy thing because there's so much history and so much learning to be done there. So educate me, sir. What is the Summer House?
The Summer House is just, it was just designed, I think Congress wanted a few more things on the Capitol grounds, including a place to stop and get some water. And this is the place that Frederick Law Olmsted designed for that. Here's the fountain. It's designed in, I believe, in the late 1870s it may have opened. And he also designed it. He was, like I said, a landscape architect. So I think it was also a project for, kind of a garden spot, botanical gardens around here. There are a lot of very pretty flowers right outside of here, just great landscaping.
Well, we're chatting with Chris Castile via Skype, via his phone in Washington, D.C. At least I assume this is your phone, Chris.
Pardon me, Dave?
So I said we're coming to you live via your phone. I assume it's your phone.
Yeah, well, my iPad, yeah.
There you go, your iPad. See, that's Chris. You cannot keep him down when it comes to technology. He's going live reporting this afternoon from Washington, D.C.
People try to act like, old people are kind of the, behind the Luddites or whatever. Really, I've been adapting to technology in this business for 30 years. So, a lot of the millennials who are kind of snotty about it, they were born into really a lot of what we're using now. I had to get there.
You've adapted. You've seen a lot in 30 years, including a lot of close races. Last night, Tuesday night, we had runoff elections in Oklahoma and Oklahoma City. And a story you wrote about was the Democrats' congressional 5th district. Talk about a close race. That was divided by just a handful of votes.
Yeah, those two guys, in the primary in June, there were 3 candidates, and those guys finished 1 and 2, separated by 13 votes. Last night, out of like 16,000 votes cast, Al McCaffrey, Oklahoma City Democrat, former state legislator, wins by 40 votes. 40 votes. So, and it was back and forth all night. That's crazy close, for sure. And I'm sure it's just absolutely heartbreaking for Tom Guild, the Edmond retired college professor, to lose, that close. This is actually a rematch between these two guys. They squared off in the primary and in a runoff in 2014, and McCaffrey won that one by a much bigger margin. So you don't get a lot closer than 40 votes.
Chris, you outlined this in the story that you have in today's editions of the Oklahoman and online at newsok.com, but I'll let you explain it as well. What goes into a recount or not in a situation like this?
That's a good question. I think, there's no automatic threshold. And I think in some states, there's if a race is within a certain amount of percentage points, I think there's a recount triggered automatically. That's not the case in Oklahoma. Tom Guild would have to petition for one and pay for it. So I think it's going to be a lot of, it's going to depend a lot. He told me this last night. Depend a lot on how much it costs to do a recount, because the fact is that's a Republican seat. Freshman Steve Russell, the Republican, holds that seat and is going to be the heavy favorite to be reelected in that seat in a still a very red area. It's most of Oklahoma County, most of Oklahoma City. It also has Potawatomi and Seminole counties. So the question for Tom Guild is how much money do I want to spend to be a nominee if I'm going to be such a heavy underdog. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Chatting via Skype with Chris Castile. He's joining us on this Wednesday afternoon from Washington, D.C. via his iPad. Chris, I want to toss to a story that you had Saturday night, or Saturday's Oklahoma.
Tourist chatter in here. I can kind of hear you, Dave, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. On Saturday in the Oklahoman, you reported you had a story about Senator James Lankford combining national security discussions and religion on Lankford's recent trip to Guatemala. Chris, the question was about Lankford's trip to Guatemala and the fact that this is one of a few we've seen where history combines with religion on trips overseas.
Dave, I'm sorry you're cutting out.
No worries. We're chatting via Skype with Chris Castile. He's joining us from the Summer House, Washington, D.C., not too far from the nation's capital, chatting via his iPad today. We're recapping some of the election coverage from last night. He has a story in today's Oklahoma and also online at newsok.com, taking a look at the Democrat side of the congressional 5th District race, won narrowly by former Senator Al McCaffrey. And Chris, I was asking you about a story that you had in Saturday's editions of the Oklahoman, also online at newsok.com, about Oklahoma Senator James Lankford combining national security discussions and religion on a trip that he took recently.
You're just kind of going in and out, Dave.
All right, sir. I'll throw it to you, though, the question about Lankford's Guatemala trip.
Okay. Shoot.
Sounds
Start
like
from the beginning.
Sounds like it might be better now, and I'll re-rack this question one more time. Chris, just a recount of the story you had in Saturday's editions involving Senator James Lankford and his trip to Guatemala.
Dave, are you there?
I'm still here, Chris. Can you hear me?
I hear you now. Hang on.
All right, very good. It's the beauties of life.
You're kind of cutting out. I couldn't hear for a while.
Chris, the question is to kind of recap the story you had about Senator.
We're probably gonna have to let these tourists get out of here real quick.
I'm looking outside the Oklahoma's video studio right now. I see various people wandering around the streets of Oklahoma City on a very warm day in late August in Oklahoma City. Perhaps they're tourists, perhaps they're just local business people. We're chatting live here on newsok.com with our Washington correspondent, Chris Castile. And Chris, I'll try to set this question up one more time. A story you had in Saturday's editions about Oklahoma Senator James Lankford combining national security discussions and religion on a trip he took to Guatemala.
Right, yeah. Senator James Lankford was in Guatemala for a couple of days last week. And he was invited there. This is his second trip. He was there also in 2014. He went down there kind of for a combination of talks about national security, drug running, immigration, some of the real problems that they face in that impoverished Central American country. But he also went down there, timed his trip to also attend the prayer breakfast down there. The new president of Guatemala is evangelical, went to a Baptist seminary, as did James Lankford. And I think, as I mentioned, as we were talking, this is kind of a habit of Oklahoma senators over the last, since the time I've been here, the last 25 years, really, to mix religion with their foreign travels. One of the first years I was here, before the first Gulf War, Senator Don Nichols went to Israel just before that war commenced to, basically for his own. I mean, Israel is obviously a huge part of any kind of conflict, or concern for them in the Middle East, a huge concern in any kind of conflict. But a lot of the reason he was there was because of his own religious beliefs and the role that he believes Israel will play, in his belief about the second coming. And then also, I've documented the many trips that Senator Inhofe has made to countries in Africa, in part to talk about evangelicals, to have prayer, Jesus prayers with African leaders, and that he used to make no bones about that was the reason he was going to some of these countries, was really just to have prayer meetings and talk. I think he called it a Jesus thing to go to Africa. So really that's. I said the Langford trip is just kind of the latest example of Oklahoma senators traveling with religion on their agenda.
And that's a story that Chris had in Saturday's editions of the Oklahoman. As I mentioned, you can still find it online at newsok.com. You can find all of Chris's articles, newsok.com/more, and Chris Castile is the URL there. Hey, Chris, one last question about last night. I noticed you posted on Twitter that the turnout for the Democratic runoff in the 5th Congressional District was a little bit lower, about 3,000 less than 2014, even though independents could vote this year. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, by my count, the turnout was like 3,000 less than 2014. And 2014, only Democrats were allowed to vote in that runoff. And last night and yesterday in Oklahoma, the Democrats had opened up their primary to independents, hoping to get more turnout. And in fact, it was actually a lot less. I mean, you consider going from 19,000 to 16,000, even though you allow, like 65,000 more people to vote. Pretty low.
Again, Al McCaffrey will face the incumbent, that is Representative Steve Russell, also Libertarian Zachary Knight. The general election is November 8th. Chris, where can we find you next week? Where in the world will Chris be next week via Skype?
Well, I mean, weather permitting, I think we'll go to another kind of out-of-the-way spot in the D.C. area.
That's kind of cool. I like this. We chat with Chris every Wednesday at 1:30 on newsok.com. And, of course, the videos are archived. You can find them on our website 24/7. Chris, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
All right. Glad to do it, Dave.
All righty. More coverage from Chris, again, can be found in the Oklahoman and online at newsok.com.